Imagine finding out that a woman declared dead was still alive and hiding a secret that could destroy everything. This is the story of a nurse who refused to close her eyes and uncovered the truth. Can you hold back your emotions and not cry until the end? A nurse examines a dead woman found on the train tracks, but something makes her drop her equipment and call the police. The clock strikes 2:00 a.m. Outside, the wind and rain blow branches across the courtyard of the Houston General Hospital. Emily Harris crosses the wet hallway. The dim light reflects in the puddles, and the silence is heavy, interrupted only by the distant hum of empty monitors. She adjusts her gown and straightens her name tag. Early shift, she whispers in a tired but firm voice. Despite the raindrops hitting the glass, the hospital seems frozen in time. Without rushing, she mentally reviews the patient schedules. Where is the calm that is expected at this hour? Nothing. But then the radio at the entrance sounds, patrol arriving with a body ready for admission. The doors open. 2 police officers push a stretcher with a black bag. Emily watches every movement. Step by step, her gloves touch. The cold texture of the material, her face tenses. All hope that it would be just another quiet shift is shattered in that moment. She watches as they open the bag carefully without haste, revealing a woman's body. Emily feels something in her chest that even she doesn't quite understand. The mask covers her mouth, but not her fear. She automatically walks towards the stretcher. She threw herself onto the tracks, says one of the policemen without looking at her. Emily notices the worn shoe, a lot of interrupted life. No one says anything else. Her eyes remain fixed on the motionless but still human figure. Emily takes a deep breath. She smells the mixture of hospital and rain. Every second weighs heavily. The cold lights in the examination room flicker slightly. The ceiling fan spins slowly, making a squeaking sound that demands silence. Emily, wearing gloves and a mask over her face, no longer feels the passage of time. Everything in there is slow, heavy, as if the air itself is in mourning. Emily approached carefully, without rushing, as if each step were an act of respect. Dark hair stuck to her face, pale skin, almost bluish, lips parted, dry, a deep cut on her left wrist, another on her right. Her arms looked fragile, as if they would break with a single touch. Her eyes were closed, but a thin line of smudged mascara was still visible. Perhaps she had cried before Emily arrived. She couldn't finish her thought. She stood there for a few seconds, just looking. That always hurt, even after so many shifts, even after seeing so many people leave. So young, she murmured softly, as if she didn't want anyone to hear her. The door creaked, and one of the policemen entered with a stack of papers in his hand. "Admission form, miss," he said almost automatically, without looking up. Emily took the paper, read it slowly, deceased without identification, picked up from the train tracks. Didn't she have any documents? She asked, trying to find something that would give some identity to that story. Nothing. No cell phone, no purse, just the body. She signed the report in silence. The policeman did the same, then put the pen in his pocket and left. Emily was left there alone with the young girl. For a moment she looked around the room. Everything was so clean, so technical, so distant. But what was lying there was a person. Someone who was once a child who had dreams. Who maybe had a daughter, a mom waiting at home, a whole life that was now there between 4 cold walls. She covered the body carefully, arranging the arms as if laying someone down to sleep. And even though she didn't know her name, Emily whispered, "Forgive me for everything that didn't go right." And she fell silent because there are moments when there is nothing left to say. Emily pulled the supply cart and took a deep breath before putting on a new pair of gloves. She adjusted the mask on her face. The movements were the same as always, almost automatic, but her heart was not beating at the same pace. That nameless girl. There was something about her that would not let Emily rest. Maybe it was her face, or the way her body seemed less rigid than normal. Carefully, she moistened a gauze pad with saline solution and began to clean the young woman's face. The strands of hair, still wet from the rain, clung to her cold skin. Emily brushed one away from her forehead and was surprised to notice a small detail just in the corner of her left eye, right where her eyelashes touched her skin. A thin, dry line, as if it were a dried tear. She stopped, looked again, and thought, tear. The air felt heavier at that moment. The room, which had been silent, seemed to grow colder. Emily continued, now more carefully. She ran the gauze down the neck, then down to the shoulders. When she reached the right arm, she felt a chill on her own skin. The young woman's arm was not as cold as it should have been. She touched it carefully. The texture was the same as always, but the temperature was still slightly warm. This isn't normal, she whispered almost without a voice. She looked around. They were alone. Emily, with a lump in her throat, decided to follow protocol. She opened the young woman's fingers to clean her nails, and that's when it happened. The little finger moved slightly, almost imperceptibly, but she saw it. She couldn't have imagined it. She pulled her hand away in fear and stood still, watching. The finger returned to its place as if nothing had happened, but Emily couldn't take her eyes off it. "My God," she said, putting her hand to her chest. Her heart raced and she brought her face close to hers as if she wanted to hear a secret. Her lips, though dry, still had some color. The young woman wasn't dead. She couldn't be. Emily took a step back. Her whole body was shaking, her heart pounding in her neck. This isn't right. This isn't right. With trembling hands, she grabbed the stethoscope hanging around her neck. The cold metal touched the young woman's chest, right there on the left side, where there should only be silence. She closed her eyes and waited for a second. Nothing. But then a very faint heartbeat, almost gone. Then another and another. Emily opened her eyes wide, took a step back, breathing rapidly. The stethoscope fell from her hand. The sound of the metal hitting the floor echoed in the empty room, dry as a blow. "She's alive," she shouted, her voice breaking. She ran out. Her feet made noise as they struck the smooth hospital floor. Adrenaline coursed through her body. She opened the emergency room door forcefully, causing the doctor on duty to turn around in alarm. "Doctor, she's alive," she said agitatedly, pointing to the room in the back. "I heard her. There's a heartbeat. It's weak, but it's there." The older, thin doctor stood up slowly, smiling. "Impossible, Emily. The police brought her in as deceased. It was an accident on the tracks. What you heard was your own heart." "I know what I heard," she said firmly, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't wait any longer. She ran back, pushed the emergency cart into the room, turned on the defibrillator with trembling hands, prepared the paddles, placed them on the young woman's chest, and hesitated for a heartbeat. "Forgive me," she whispered, and applied the shock. The body jerked. The monitor stayed silent again. Another shock, another try. "Come on, respond," Emily murmured, almost pleading. The doctor appeared at the door. "That's enough. She's not alive." "No, that's not true. She's fighting. I felt it. I heard it." Emily began chest compressions. Sweat ran down her face with her tears. "Come on, girl, come back. You're not alone, not today." Time stalled. The monitor's line was faint, uncertain. The doctor watched her. Something in him shifted. He stepped in, pulled on gloves. "Clear. Now I'll take over." Emily stepped back, breathless. He proceeded through protocol, intubation, adrenaline, maneuvers. Minute by minute, the monitor flickered. 12 minutes, 13. At 14, beep, beep. Regular. The doctor met her eyes. No impatience now. Emily brought her hand to her mouth and almost knelt down. It was as if the world was moving again. The young woman was breathing with the help of machines, but she was stable. A thread of life pulled back against all odds, against all logic. Emily approached slowly, took her hand carefully, looked at her pale, still face, and whispered softly, "Are you here, and I am with you?" And there, for the first time that early morning, Emily let out a cry. But now it was a cry of hope. The room was silent. Only the constant beep on the monitor filled the air like the timid heartbeat of someone who wants to live again. Emily stood with her hands still shaking, her body exhausted, but her gaze steady. The young girl was there, breathing. That was the only thing that mattered at that moment. Carefully, Emily began to prepare her to change her clothes. The torn and dirty dress was stuck to her body, soaked in mud, dried blood, and a smell of metal. Every movement was delicate, respectful, like someone caring for someone who is sleeping after a long fight. When she noticed something strange on the inside of the dress, a small lump, like a pimple hidden in the seam, made her frown. She pulled it out carefully. It wasn't fabric, it was paper. Emily grabbed a pair of scissors and carefully cut the stitch that closed the seam. What came out was a piece of paper folded many times. It was wet and stained, but still legible. She unfolded it carefully, and there in the center, in shaky handwriting, almost childlike, it said, "Luna Martinez, New Mexico." That was all, but it was like a cry, a name, a place, a request. Emily felt a lump in her throat. "Luna," she whispered, as if calling a long-lost friend. And New Mexico, a destination, perhaps a home or an escape, looked at the face of the young woman who was still unconscious. The handwriting was crooked, shaky, like someone writing secretly in a hurry, afraid. Emily clutched the paper in her hand and took a deep breath. It was like holding a secret, like holding the only thing that woman still had of herself, her own name. She put the paper in a small envelope and tucked it into the pocket of her robe close to her heart. Then she rearranged the clean clothes on the young woman. She looked at her tenderly and said softly, "Luna, now I know who you are. If that's your name, I promise I'll take care of your name as if you were my sister." The young woman didn't answer, but the monitor remained steady as if to say, "Thank you." The next morning dawned grey. The rain had let up, but the sky still looked heavy, as if it knew something important was about to happen. Emily walked down the hospital hallway with a warm cup of coffee in her hand and deep circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. Every few minutes, she went to the room where Luna was just to make sure she was still breathing. It was one of those times that she saw her. At the end of the hallway, in front of the glass of the observation room, there was a woman standing. She was wearing a large dark coat, with the hood covering most of her face. She stood still, her eyes fixed on Luna, who was still unconscious, lying there, fragile but alive. Emily stopped. She watched her from a distance. The woman didn't look familiar or like a normal visitor. There was something about her posture, like fear or pain. She approached with soft steps. "Excuse me, do you know her?" The woman gave a little start. Emily noticed the movement of her hands. They were clenched tightly, as if she were holding something inside. "Ma'am?" The woman didn't answer. She just took a step back, then another. Then she turned around and started walking quickly down the hallway. "Hey, wait." Emily ran after her, but when she turned the corner into the next hallway, the woman had disappeared. Reception, stairs, any exit. No one saw where she went. She returned agitated, her heart pounding. There was something about that presence, something that didn't fit. And something inside Emily told her that this woman wasn't there by chance. Later, she sat down in front of the computer and decided to look for answers. She took the name on the piece of paper, Luna Martinez, and called the local police station. The person who answered sounded tired and replied in a monotone voice, "Yes, we have a report of a woman found on the tracks last night. Attempted suicide with no witnesses, but no one saw anything. No one heard anything. Only the patrol car found her." End of the line. Emily looked at the paper in her hand. Luna Martinez, New Mexico. Did she have any identification? Anything that says where she came from? The man was silent for a moment. Only one thing caught her attention. She had a hospital bracelet from a psychiatric clinic, but it's from New Mexico, 200 km from here. Pretty weird, actually. Emily froze. She looked back at the young woman's wrist. The white bracelet was stained with dirt, and the numbers were almost erased. It was a small did total, but it said so much. She hung up the phone and stood there thinking, someone who ended up on the tracks, someone no one was looking for, someone who had a hospital bracelet, and someone who received a mysterious visitor just before dawn. Emily closed her eyes, trying to swallow the lump in her throat. Luna's story was far from over, and everything about it hurt like an open wound. The afternoon sun shone weakly through the bedroom window. The hospital continued with its quiet, almost slow pace. Like any small town after lunch, Emily, sitting on a bench next to Luna's bed, watched her face, still unconscious, still fragile, but alive, breathing. It was as if the young woman was fighting with something inside, between wanting to come back and not knowing if she should. The nurse adjusted the blanket at Luna's feet and, almost without meaning to, noticed a bag lying in a corner of the room that hadn't been there before. It was torn, dirty, as if it had been through a storm, and maybe it had. Emily approached, knelt down slowly, and opened the zipper carefully. There were few things inside: a broken lipstick, a bent toothbrush, a comb, a crumpled piece of paper with numbers written on it that led nowhere, and at the bottom a photograph. She took it out carefully. It was a small photo with worn edges. A girl of about 6 years old with straight hair tied in pigtails looked at the camera with a shy, sweet smile. She was wearing a school uniform, a backpack on her back, an ordinary girl, the kind you see every day walking down the sidewalk. Emily felt a chill, ran her finger gently over the image, then turned it over. On the back, written in a child's handwriting, was a phrase, "For Mum, I love you, Ava." She read it aloud once, then again it hit her hard, like a punch in the stomach. Ava whispered, "You have a daughter." Emily looked up at Luna. Her face was still motionless, but the nurse now saw something else in her. Not just a wounded woman, but a mother. A mother separated from her daughter. A woman whose body bore the marks of pain and whose heart was filled with love. Holding the photo with both hands, Emily sat back down next to the bed. She stayed there for a while in silence, just looking, thinking, where could that little girl be now? With whom did she know her mother was alive, that she was still fighting? Those questions hurt more than any answer, because Emily knew deep down what it was like to grow up without a mother. She knew the emptiness left by such an absence. She stroked Luna's hair tenderly. "I don't know where your daughter is, but I swear, Luna, that girl is going to know that you didn't give up." And then she pressed the photo against her chest as if that little piece of paper were a promise. Emily walked slowly down the back hallway. The light there was dimmer, and the smell was different. A mixture of formaldehyde, silence, and loneliness. The coroner's office was always at the end of the hospital, as if it were better to keep death far away from the living. But that day she couldn't ignore the discomfort in her chest. She felt that something wasn't right. Nothing in Luna's story seemed to fit. Everything was too strange. She pushed the door open with her shoulder, already wearing her coat. Inside, the white lights flickered over the metal tables. It was empty. All she could hear was the sound of a clock ticking every second, like a stubborn beat. She went to the corner where the side table was. She looked through some files to find any clues, but nothing caught her attention. As she was about to leave, she stopped when she saw the trash can half open with crumpled papers on top. On impulse, she bent down and pulled out what appeared to be a discarded report. It was an official death certificate form. It was unstamped, but parts of it had been filled in by hand. Emily smoothed out the paper carefully. It read, "Unidentified patient, female, death confirmed. No signs of life at the scene, body taken to the morgue." She read it again and again, but what made her heart freeze was the footnote signed by Dr. Edward Revoas. Emily frowned. Dr. Edward whispered in confusion. He wasn't even on call that night. She was sure the doctor on duty was someone else. She had seen him herself. She had argued with him herself. Edward only worked on even days, and this was an odd day. She held the paper up to the light and noticed the cruelest detail, the date. The report was dated 2 hours before the young woman had arrived at the hospital. The blood rushed to her head. This was done earlier. Before she got here, Emily clenched the paper between her fingers. The paper was shaking, or was it her? What did that mean? That someone had already declared Luna dead before examining her? She sat down on the bench next to her and stared at the floor. A heavy silence filled the room. Luna wasn't just forgotten. Someone wanted her to be forgotten. The file was just a piece of paper stained with ink, but it held a crime inside, and Emily could no longer pretend. She didn't see it. Emily sat for long minutes with that crumpled piece of paper in her hand, the report lying on the floor. She couldn't get it out of her head. The signature, the date, the certainty that Luna had almost been buried alive, stamped and all. She knew she needed to understand more. She had to dig deeper, even if it hurt. She went up to the file room, asked for the key to the file cabinet, and went in alone. The cold light from the ceiling illuminated shelves full of files, names and stories, all stacked up, some forgotten, others with endings that no one wanted to tell. She searched carefully, letter by letter, until she found the envelope. Patient without identification. Female, about 30 years old. She took the folder out slowly, sat down at the table and opened it. Inside were a few papers, but still much more information than everyone said they had. First page, generic name, recent dates, voluntary admission for severe depression. Emily frowned. Something didn't add up. The name on the file was different, and so was the address. It wasn't even the same state. She turned the page and read the small print of the clinical details. Repetitions, copied and pasted phrases, soulless information. This isn't hers, she muttered, as if it were a file already prepared, adapted, as if someone just wanted to fill a void with anything just so it would be there. Emily put everything back in the folder and left the room with a heavy heart. In the hallway, she looked for the number of the clinic on the bracelet. She dialed slowly on her cell phone, her finger trembling slightly. She called 3 times. San Gabriel Clinic. "Good morning," answered a monotonous male voice. Emily took a deep breath. "Hello." "Good morning. I'm a nurse at the hospital in Houston. I have a patient here who arrived with one of your bracelets. I would like to confirm if she was there recently. The patient's name is Luna Martinez on the other end." Silence. 2 seconds. "Yes, I'm here," he said, his voice now different, more alert, more restrained. "Then she's in your system." Another silence. "I'm sorry, I can't talk about that. But she's in serious condition. We need to know if there were any recent medications, psychiatric history, whatever. I'm so sorry, I can't help you." Before Emily could say anything else, the call was cut off. She stared at the cell phone screen for a few seconds. Then she looked out the window, where the sky was beginning to darken again. The wind moved the trees outside, and inside her something was moving too. It wasn't just abandonment. It was fear. It was deliberate silence. Someone didn't want Luna to be found or remembered. Emily picked up her cell phone, looked again at the photo of the girl smiling in her school uniform, and whispered, "I'm going to find out what they did to your mum, Eva, even if it costs me everything." On that hot afternoon, the hospital was busier than usual. Emily walked down the hallway with a chart in her hand, her head still filled with questions that wouldn't leave her mind. Luna remained stable but unconscious. And with each passing hour, the mystery surrounding her seemed to grow. That's when she saw him. He appeared out of nowhere, right in the middle of the lobby. He was wearing a dark suit, too elegant for the heat of the day. Shiny shoes, leather briefcase. But what caught her eye the most was the gold watch, flashy, the kind, isn't cheap. His eyes scanned the room as if looking for something or someone. Emily approached him wary. "Can I help you, sir?" The man looked her up and down, then smiled in an almost fake way. "Nurse Emily, right? I got your name at the front desk. I'm Dr. Armando Perez. I'm the Martinez family's lawyer." She gripped the chart tightly. "Martinez family? Yes. I came to check on the patient. I am responsible for her interests and those of her family." Emily thought carefully about her words. How strange. So far, no one from the family has come, and the patient is still not officially registered. That's why I'm here." He moved a little closer and lowered his voice. "Look, my client needs discretion. A lot of it. Her case is delicate, and if it becomes public, it could cause her a lot of harm. You understand?" She didn't respond. He opened the briefcase, took out a thick envelope, and discreetly placed it on the counter between them. "A small token of our appreciation for your understanding. I just need you to guarantee me that no one else will have access to the patient. No journalists, no social workers, not even the doctors. Without my permission, can we count on that?" Emily looked at the envelope, felt her stomach churn. She knew exactly what was inside. And she also knew that people like him don't show up by chance. He knew that Luna was there. He knew she had survived. She pushed the envelope back slowly. "Do you really want to protect Luna? Or do you want her to disappear again?" He frowned for the first time without smiling. "Nurse, I'm offering you something fair. Months of your salary, nothing more. And I'm telling you that you're not going to buy my conscience or her life." The man took the envelope calmly, adjusted his suit, and looked her firmly in the eyes. "This could cost you dearly." Emily took a step forward. Her voice was firm, soft, but full of truth. "It already cost her, and it's not going to cost her again." He looked at her for a second longer, then turned and walked away slowly, like someone who doesn't need to run because he's used to being in charge. Emily stood there with her heart racing, feeling the tension rise in her throat. But she didn't regret it for a second. She returned to Luna's room, entered slowly, looked at her still sleeping face, said, "They're not going to erase you so easily, Luna. Not while I'm here." Night fell heavily on the hospital. The intensive care corridor was quieter than usual, and even the monitors seemed to be ticking more slowly. Emily was sitting at the nurse's station reviewing reports when she looked out the window of room 7 and felt a chill. The bed was empty. She jumped up, ran into the room. Nothing. The blanket was thrown to one side. The heart monitor cables were disconnected. The IV stand was on the floor. Her heart began to beat very fast. Luna had disappeared. She ran through the hallways, called security, and notified the doctor on call. No one had seen her leave. No cameras showed any movement. It was as if she had evaporated from the room, barefoot, without a monitor. With only a flashlight in her hand, Emily began to search everywhere: stairways, dressing rooms, bathrooms, forgotten hallways. When she reached the second basement, she stopped. Something inside her told her to go down the emergency staircase, the one that almost no one ever used. She descended slowly, step by step, and there, halfway down, sitting in a corner with her back pressed against the wall and her knees tucked up to her chest, Luna was trembling, staring into space. Her hair fell over her sweaty face. Her bare feet were dirty and red from the cold. Emily knelt down slowly in front of her. "Luna, it's me, Emily. You're safe now. Everything is fine." Luna looked at her with lost eyes, as if she couldn't understand where she was. Then she began to cry softly, like a hurt little girl. "They took my daughter," she whispered, almost voiceless. "I tried to escape, but they caught me. They locked me up there." Emily grabbed her hand tightly. "You're safe now. I'm here. You don't need to run away anymore." But Luna wasn't listening anymore. Her body bent forward, her shoulders slumped, and in a second she fainted in Emily's arms. Emily held her as if she were carrying a piece of the world that could no longer be broken. She rested her head on hers, feeling the weight of that fragile body and all the pain it carried inside. And there, on that cold, hidden staircase, in the depths of a hospital, 2 women shared the same pain, that of having been silenced. The difference was that now one of them had someone who wouldn't let her go. The night was quiet, and Luna's breathing was slow from the sedatives. Emily sat down next to the bed, watching as the young woman's eyes slowly opened. There was exhaustion in them, but also a faint intention to return to the surface, like someone fighting to escape a nightmare that had lasted too long. "Did you hear me?" Luna whispered in a slurred voice. Emily nodded, touching her hand gently. I'm here. You can talk if you want to. Only if you want to. Luna turned her face to one side, staring at the ceiling for a few seconds. The dim light from the lamp cast shadows on her face, and in that heavy silence she began to speak. The words came out as if they had been stuck for years. I was married to an important man, rich, well-known, who spoke nicely in front of others, but at home. At home, he was someone else. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to hold back the tears. Emily waited without interrupting, just listening. One day I told him I wanted to separate. I was tired of his aggression. I told him I would take Eva with me. He laughed. He said I was crazy, that no one would believe me. Luna took a deep breath, her voice barely coming out. Then one day he told me to go rest. That's how he put it. He took me to a clinic far, far away from everything. He ordered them to admit me. He said I was unstable. He made up that I had seizures. They left me there for a month. Emily squeezed her hand tighter, feeling every word like a blow, and Eva took it away from me. He said it was for her own good, that a sick mother couldn't raise a daughter. I tried to escape once, but they caught me. The second time, I jumped the fence. That's the last thing I remember. After that, just the sound of the train. Tears fell onto the pillow and Emily couldn't hold back hers. She felt every detail of that story as if it were her own. Because the pain of being silenced, of losing a child, is a pain that goes beyond any distance. Luna slowly turned her face toward her. Do you believe? Emily leaned forward and rested her forehead on hers, her eyes filled with all her heart. And there, in that moment, even in the midst of the pain, something was born between the two of them. It wasn't just empathy, it was a bond. It was shared courage. It was the beginning of a promise that Emily knew she couldn't break to bring Eva back to the mother who never stopped fighting. Emily held the photo with both hands, as if that little piece of paper were made of glass. Eva's face, smiling with her crooked little teeth and eyes full of tenderness, wouldn't leave her mind. That girl wasn't just a lost child, she was the reason Luna was still breathing. She was the only thing keeping a thread of hope alive in the heart of that broken woman. She picked up her cell phone and with trembling fingers searched her address book for an old name. It was a contact she hadn't used in years. Linda, a friend from college who now worked for a network of private schools in the Arizona region, called. Emily's heart was beating as if it were about to jump out of her chest. Hi, Linda. It's Emily. Do you have a minute, Linda? Wow, it's been a long time. What happened? It's urgent. I'm dealing with a situation here at the hospital. A patient is in a coma, but I found this in her bag. Emily sent the photo. It's her daughter, Eva. She doesn't have a last name, just that name and a message written on the back. For Mum, I love you. I know she's from a wealthy family and probably goes to some expensive private school. There was silence on the other end of the line. Wait, give me a minute. Emily heard the sound of typing. Time stood still. She paced back and forth in the hallway, looking at the door to Luna's room, as if at any moment she would wake up and ask, "Did you find my daughter?" After a few minutes, Linda's voice came back lower, more serious. "Emily, there is a girl with that face who looks like her. The only Eva I found in the system, but her name is different. Eva Monada. She's been studying here for 2 years. She was transferred from New Mexico." Emily felt the air leave her lungs. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure. Oh, and here in the system, it says that the girl's mother died in an accident." The words hit Emily like a punch in the gut. "You said that her mother died?" "Yes." Emily leaned against the wall in the hallway. She felt the world spinning. "Linda, that mother is alive and here fighting to get back to her daughter. Thank you so much for everything." On the other end, her friend only responded with a sigh. Emily hung up the phone slowly. She stood there holding the photo again, looking at those little girls' eyes as if they were asking for help. The mother wasn't dead. They had just erased her. And now was the time to bring that story to light, even if she had to do it with her own hands. Emily stood at the hospital window holding Eva's photo between her fingers. The image of the girl smiling seemed to be looking directly at her now. But it wasn't just the photo. It was everything. Luna's story, the name crossed out, the lie they told her daughter. All of it was hitting her in a place inside her that she had tried to forget for years. It was as if suddenly a door had opened in the back of her mind. And there she was, small, sitting on the couch in her aunt's house with her legs dangling in the air and her eyes swollen from asking, "Where's my mom?" The answer was always the same, a look that went elsewhere. A heavy silence, and then that dry phrase, "Your mum got sick. She went to the hospital and never came back." Emily grew up with that in her head, that she was weak, that she had abandoned her. She spent her entire childhood harboring a strange mixture of sadness and anger. Now looking at Luna there in the bed, not moving, and at that daughter who thought she was alone in the world, it was as if the past had come back to haunt her. As if it were saying, "And now, Emily, are you going to let it happen again? Are you going to let a daughter not see her mum and just be told that she's gone? That she couldn't hold back the tears?" She rested her forehead against the glass and let the tears flow without trying to hide them. "I couldn't save my mum," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I'm going to save yours, Ava. I swear on everything I am. I'm going to save your mum." Because at that moment, Emily was no longer just a nurse. She was a daughter. She was a mother. She was someone who knew very well the emptiness that remains when your history is taken away from you. And there she promised, amid the sound of the monitors and the pain of the past, that never again would anyone grow up thinking that their mother had disappeared, when in reality she just needed to be heard. The night had already advanced. Emily was alone in the hospital kitchen, drinking a cup of cold coffee, trying to make sense of everything that was happening. Her cell phone vibrated on the table, unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Hello." The response took a second, just a second, but it froze everything inside her. Let her die. The voice belonged to a man who was too calm, almost polite, but completely emotionless. "What or will you be next?" And the call was cut off. Emily stood there still, the cell phone still to her ear, her heart racing, unable to breathe. That voice was not a scream or a threat spoken in anger. It was a cold, calculated warning, like someone who had already decided what they were going to do. She got up slowly, looked around. The kitchen was empty. But now, even though the lights were on, everything seemed darker. She ran to Luna's room and opened the door forcefully. Luna was awake, sitting on the bed, pale, her eyes filled with fear. "Are you okay?" asked Emily, agitated. Luna nodded with difficulty and then, with her hand trembling, pulled her bag from the foot of the bed. She opened it carefully, as if she were guarding something very valuable. "I need to show you something," she whispered. From inside, she took out a small memory card. Emily took it carefully. It was very small, almost invisible, but its weight could be felt just by looking at it. "Everything is here," whispered Luna. "I recorded it before I ran away." "I knew something might happen." Emily plugged the card into an old laptop in the infirmary, opened the folder, a single video file, and pressed play. The image was shaky and dark. Luna was sitting in a corner with her face beaten, a cut on her eyebrow and red eyes from crying so much. "If you're watching this, it's because he did it," she said, her voice breaking. "My daughter's father had me committed. He beat me. He hid me. If anything happens to me, it was him. Please don't leave my daughter with him. Please." The video cut off there. Emily closed the laptop with her eyes filled with tears. There was the truth, hard, unadorned, alive. It wasn't just a complaint. It was a cry for help, a cry that managed to break the silence. And in that moment, Emily understood. She was no longer just protecting a patient. She was holding the only chance for a mother to be reunited with her daughter, and she wasn't going to let go for anything in the world. The phone rang early before Emily arrived at the hospital. It was Linda, the friend from the school network. Her voice sounded different, Direct Emily, did something happen? Eva didn't come to school today. Emily froze. What do you mean, no? Grandma called saying that Dad came for her last night. He said it was an urgent trip, but no one notified the school. No one said when they'd be back, and Eva didn't leave a message for her classmates. She never does that. Emily hung up with her heart racing, crossing the hospital corridors, almost running to Luna's room. She opened the door forcefully. Luna was sitting up trying to get out of bed by herself, pale, weak, desperate. Help me. I have to go get her. Help me, please, she begged with her hands outstretched, her eyes filled with panic. Emily held her by the shoulders, trying to calm her down. Luna, wait, what happened? I felt it. Last night I felt something was going to happen. I dreamed about her. She was crying. Emily, listen to me. They took her away. Listen to me. They took my daughter away from me again. She was shaking. Tears were streaming down her face. Her breathing was irregular, as if her whole body was about to collapse. Emily called a nurse, asked for a mild sedative, but did not let them give it to her completely. Then she left the room and went straight to the nearest police station. She entered determined. I want to file an urgent report about a girl who was taken against her mother's will. The man behind the desk barely looked up. There is a court order. Who has custody? Custody was obtained illegally based on the forced hospitalization of the mother. The girl was taken out of school by a man accused of violence who had already tried to make the mother disappear. He sighed deeply, as if he already knew he was going to hear more than he wanted to. Mom, this type of case is complicated. If the girl left with her father and her grandmother confirmed it, Emily hit the table with the palm of her hand. She had no right. They took the girl away by force. The mother is hospitalized, wounded, alive by miracle. And you're going to wait for what? Another death report? Silent. The police officer stood up, grabbed a sheet of paper, and began to fill it out slowly. But she knew it would take a long time, that they would postpone it, that they would push it. As always, Emily left there holding back her tears, returned to the hospital, went into the bathroom, and locked herself in. She looked at herself in the mirror, her face tired, her eyes red, ran her hands over the sink, took a deep breath, then looked up and said quietly, I'm not going to let it happen again. Not to her, not to anyone. And there, alone in that cold bathroom, Emily made a decision. Even if the system didn't do anything, she would. The road was long, full of curves and potholes. The car swayed with every turn, and the drizzle on the windshield only made everything heavier. Emily drove with her hands firmly on the wheel. Next to her, Luna, wrapped in an old blanket. Her face pale, her eyes lost. She hadn't said a word in over half an hour, just breathing deeply, as if holding something inside so as not to explode. In the back seat, Miguel, the journalist, adjusted his cell phone, testing the signal from the hidden camera. He was an old friend of Emily's, one of those people who doesn't hesitate when there's a human emergency. We're almost there, he said, looking at the map. It's 10 minutes from here. A dirt road that's hard to see. The place seems isolated from everything. Emily nodded. Luna closed her eyes for a second, as if praying silently. Her fingers trembled on her legs. Her face was marked by fear and a hope that hurt because it was so great. The car stopped in a clearing. There were no lights nearby, only the sound of branches moving in the wind. The ranch stood there dark and silent, a half-open wooden gate. Emily turned off the engine. Ready, she whispered. Luna took a deep breath and said in the firmest voice she could muster, It's now or never. They went in through a side door at the back. The flashlight on her cell phone barely illuminated a dirt hallway with closed doors and very high windows until they heard a faint noise, a muffled cry. Emily pointed. Luna ran to a closed door. She listened. Emily knocked almost out of breath. Silence. Ava, it's me, daughter. I'm your mum. From inside, a weak, broken voice. Mum. Emily knocked the door down with her shoulder. Inside was a dark room, smelling of damp, and in a corner huddled between blankets was the girl, her eyes wide open, tears falling. Luna fell to her knees and opened her arms. Ava hesitated, then ran as if her body knew before her mind did. She threw herself into her mother's arms, hugging her tightly and crying loudly. "You're alive," she repeated between sobs. "You're alive, Mom." Luna was also crying, unable to say anything, just kissing her head, hugging her, feeling her. Emily stood at the door with her hand on her chest, her heart tight, her eyes full. It was like seeing herself there many years ago, but this time with a different ending. Ava and Luna remained like that, hugging each other for several minutes, as if the world had stopped just for them, as if that hug could erase everything that had happened. And for a moment it did. The sound of the gate slamming shut echoed through the ranch like thunder. Emily turned around suddenly, taking her cell phone out of her pocket. Luna's face turned pale instantly. Ava grabbed her mother's blouse tightly, as if she wanted to hide inside it. He was there, the ex-husband, the same one Luna had described in whispers full of pain, elegant, well-dressed but with cold, empty eyes, and in his hands a weapon, low but visible, clear. The metal glinted in the dim light of the hallway. "What a beautiful scene," he said with a smirk. The fugitive and the daughter and a nurse who had wandered where she shouldn't have. Emily had already started recording carefully, camera on live for thousands of people. With a tap, the video went live, broadcast directly on Miguel's networks. "Don't come any closer," Emily said in a firm voice, even though her heart was beating so hard she could hardly think. "You think anyone's going to believe you?" He laughed. "To all the idiots in this town, I'm the victim here. I made you look like the crazy wife, the woman who wanted to take her own life. That's what everyone knows. You'll never be able to prove otherwise." Luna stood in front of her daughter. Her face showed fear, but her body was firm. "I was your wife, and you locked me up. You erased me. You took my daughter away from me, and now you want to silence us again." He laughed and shouted, "In a year, no one will even remember you." He raised the gun slightly. That movement alone made Ava scream. "Mum!" Emily took a step forward, recording everything. Her hand was no longer shaking. "Go on, say more," she said, looking him straight in the eyes. "The whole country is listening to you right now. They're watching you leave." His smile disappeared instantly. He looked around, confused, took his cell phone out of his pocket. He saw the notification, saw his face on the screen, saw the comments. Thousands and then sirens, blue and red lights filled the night. Screams, armed police, voices telling him to drop the gun. He hesitated, lowered his hand, tried to run, but was immediately detained, handcuffed, thrown to the ground like any other man. Luna fell to her knees, crying. Ava ran into her arms. Emily turned off the camera. The job was done. But in that embrace, on the cold floor of that ranch, there was not only justice, there was survival. It was the end of a silence that had lasted many years. The morning light streamed softly through the bedroom window. The light cast delicate shadows on the walls, and the noise of the city began to wake up outside. Inside the hospital, time seemed to slow down. In bed, Luna slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. Her face still showed exhaustion, but there was peace there. There was relief. Ava sat next to her with her head resting on her mother's arm, holding her hand tightly. Her little eyes were swollen from crying, from fear, from missing her, from everything she couldn't explain. But now they were calm. From time to time she ran her fingers very slowly through her mother's hair, as if she were afraid of waking her, but also afraid of letting go again. Emily watched from a distance, leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, her name tag crooked on her robe and a lump in her throat. Her eyes were shining. She saw the two of them there so close, so complete within the pain they had experienced, and she felt something difficult to explain. It was pain mixed with pride, relief mixed with anger, nostalgia mixed with a happiness that hurt. Luna woke up slowly. The first thing she saw was her daughter sleeping there, sitting with her little hand clutching hers. She smiled weakly. "But truly, Ava," she whispered. The girl opened her eyes instantly, as if she had been waiting for that call forever. "Mommy, are you really here?" Luna caressed her little face. "Yes, my love, I'm here now." Ava threw herself into her arms, crying softly. Emily turned her face away, trying to hide it, but the tears came anyway. Luna raised her free arm and reached out to her. Emily hesitated but went to her, and there, in the middle of that room, lit by an ordinary morning, 3 hands met. The 3 hands were tightly clasped, trembling, different in size, foe in history, in scars, but equal in the strength of those who did not allow themselves to be defeated. Emily looked at the 2 of them and smiled with all her soul in her eyes. 3 women, 3 survivors, and none of them was alone anymore. The road was long, surrounded by empty fields and trees twisted by time. The sun was beating down, but the wind was cold. Emily walked slowly among the simple graves, a crumpled envelope in her hand, and her heart tight in her chest. She reached her mother's grave. It was a modest gravestone without flowers, with the name carved in letters worn away by time. She stood there for a moment, looking as if she expected some answer to come from the ground. But the silence was the same as always. She knelt down, wiped the dust from the stone with her fingers, and placed the envelope right in the center. "Hello, Mom?" Her voice broke from the start. She took a deep breath, blinked slowly, and continued. "Today I saved a woman. She was almost gone. Almost. But she stayed, and I didn't let her go." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if remembering everything at once. "I would have loved to be able to do that for you, I swear, but you were so far away, and I was just a little girl. I didn't know anything. I just missed you." The tears fell slowly, as if coming from a place hidden away for years. "But today, when I saw that mother hugging her daughter, I felt like somehow it was also for you, as if I had finally done something right, as if I had taken a step for both of us." She ran her hand over the envelope one last time. "I forgive you for not being able to come back, and I hope you also forgive me for taking so long to understand that it wasn't your fault." Emily stood there for a few more minutes in silence, then got up and for the first time in a long time left that place with her heart a little lighter. In the days that followed, the case exploded in the media. Headlines in all the newspapers, websites, social media, television programs. Nurse saves woman who had been given up for dead. Live video reveals network of illegal internments. Miracle at Houston Hospital. Emily became a familiar face overnight. They called her a heroine, a fighter, a symbol, and she listened to it all in silence. The only thing she said every time someone tried to congratulate her was, "I just did what had to be done. I just didn't close my eyes," because deep down she knew it wasn't for fame. It was so that another moon wouldn't be forgotten, so that another girl wouldn't grow up believing she lost her mom when all she needed was to be heard. The new house was simple, with light blue walls and handmade curtains. A small garden in front, full of freshly planted flowers. Luna was on the terrace wearing sandals and her hair tied back, a shy smile on her face. Emily arrived slowly, carrying a bag of fruit, bread, and a hug she had been saving since the last time they saw each other. Ava came running from the yard, with her feet dirty from the dirt, and her hands hiding something behind her back. "Aunt Emily," she shouted, jumping into her arms. Eiley bent down to receive the hug, laughing with her eyes filled with tears. "What happened? Where is my little girl? You're all grown up now. Wait, I have something for you." Ava slowly took out a gift wrapped in colorful paper. She opened it right there with careful hands. Inside was a bracelet made of colored threads, braided simply but with a lot of love. "I made it all by myself," she said proudly. "It's so you'll never forget us." Emily looked at the gift and swallowed her tears. "And this is prettier than real jewelry." Ava smiled shilly and said, "That's because you have miracle hands, Aunt Emily." Luna stood in the doorway, watching everything with her eyes full of tears. She didn't say anything, but her gaze said it all. Emily put the bracelet on her wrist as if it were a metal. She looked at the two of them, took a deep breath, and felt her chest warm in a way that cannot be explained. There, in that new house, in that life that was slowly starting over, there was something that no headline told, no video showed, no newspaper wrote about. It was peace, silent, small, made of 3 colored threads tied around her wrist, and a love that now no longer had to be hidden. Emily walked down the hallway of the new wing, her white coat now more worn, but her badge shone with the name she now identified with most. Pediatric nurse, maternal care. It was another place, another energy. There the crying was thinner, the looks more frightened, and the silences weighed even more. She walked slowly between the beds, learning the language of the downcast glances of girls with women's bodies but wounded souls. Every story there seemed to echo the one she carried in her heart. Every baby without arms to hold them, every frightened child, every mother without a voice. Emily knew how to recognize the cry, even if she couldn't hear it. She knew because she had heard it before, not with her ears, but with her heart. One grey afternoon after a long shift, she sat alone in the hospital cafeteria. She grabbed her cell phone almost without thinking. A new notification. It was a message. The photo opened slowly. Ava in her new uniform, her hair tied back in a red bow, backpack on her back. Smiling, Emily felt the air leave her for a moment. Just below, a note written in firm handwriting. "Thank you for bringing my mom back to me. I'll never forget you." She pressed the cell phone against her chest, closed her eyes, and stood there alone in the empty dining room, but with a love so great inside her that it no longer fit in the silence. Her life had changed, but more than that, she had changed someone else's life. What if it were your daughter? What if it were your sister, your mom, your friend? What if no one had listened to that weak heart? How many moons are still out there? Invisible, silenced, locked up for no reason, far from those who love them most. Buried alive, not only by the system, but by indifference. How many? Emily listened. When everything told her to give up, she stayed. When they said it was too late, she insisted. When the truth seemed too dangerous, she chose to tell it. She didn't just save a body, she saved a story. She saved a daughter's love. She saved a mother's hope. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Emily's place, or Luna's, or little Eva's? Write here in the comments. Tell me how this story made you feel, because there are stories that don't go away. They stay with you. Oh, and don't forget to click the bell, because every week we bring you real moving stories that touch where it hurts the most and also where it heals the most. And if you haven't seen it yet, click now on the video that appears on the screen. It's a beautiful story that has already made many people cry and rethink their lives. Come on, I'll see you next.